Boker Tov, today's daf is daf Mem Beis and Bab Mציעא. Famous daf, Bab Mציעא, daf Mem Beis. From the top of the page, a person deposited money with a nifgad, with the depositee, a shomer. Okay, so the shomer, the person who received it, the shomer tsaron, he tied him up, and he threw him on his back. In other words, he tied it up in a bundle, which apparently was secure, but he threw it like on his back. He carried it over his shoulder. Or he gave it to his young children to guard. Vinol b'fneim. Rashi doesn't have the girsa. He doesn't have but he says muster vinol b'fneim. In other words, he gave it to his kids, his little children, and he locked the door shalom karoi, but improperly. He didn't lock it rather properly. Some have the girsa that it's oshanol b'fneim shalom meaning oshanol b'fneim, meaning one of three things happened. Either he tied up the money and threw it on his back, or he gave it to his young children, or he locked it up in a way that wasn't secure. So there's three different cases, not two cases. So in all these cases, chayiv, the shomer is chayiv, even though he's a shomer chinam, shelo shomer kedech shem, he didn't guard it properly. You have to have some minimal measure of security. A shomer chinam is only responsible if he was negligent, and this is considered negligence, because he gave it to his little children or he didn't lock it up properly. We'll see what was the first case. Why in the first case where he secured it, he tied it up and he threw it on his back, why is that considered improper? Obviously, if he guarded it properly and yet still something happened to it, he's potter because he wasn't negligent. That's a shomer chinam. So Bishlam Kula, we understand the other cases. I understand give it to your children, or if you learn like the Ramban, others learn that the Nova Flame Shakroy is a separate case, or he just locked it up improperly, fine. According to Rashi, it's more difficult because Kulu is only going in the case of Katan and the Nova Flame. There's only two cases in the Mishnah, either tying it up and throwing it on your back, or one case of giving it to little children and locking them up improperly. So there's only two cases. So what's the Kulu? Okay, it's going on the other case, the case where you gave it to your children. We understand that you didn't guard it properly. What's wrong if he tied it up and threw it on his back? That's how people carry things. When it comes to Ma'aser Sheni, it says, you tie it up and keep it in your hand, right? People know the best place to keep your money is in your front pocket or something, or, under your hand, not on your back. When you walk on your shasarab, somebody might take it up. Even though they're tied up, you definitely should be in your hand, not on your back. This is what Rav Yitzchak said. Another thing Rav Yitzchak said in this manner, always keep your money in your hand. That's the safe place to keep your money. Not only, right? He says even though they're tied up, they should be in your hand, right? Now, this is going on, the idea that, in order to be safe, in order to be secure, keep your money in your hand. Another thing that he said, should always be handy. Don't give it to other people because you might need the money. Always have cash handy. There might be a deal coming across your desk, and if you have cash, you could take advantage of it. No cash, you won't be able to take advantage of it. So make sure you always have money ready and handy. Yeah, liquid. Because one must be able to. Another, so both those things you learn out. In other words, tie it up. Number one, it should tie it up, or all three things, right? You should tie it up. Number two, it should be in your hand and it should be ready. All those cases, like you say, if you have today when there's credit cards and checks and things like that, the point is the money should be ready. If I'm going to that's most of a famous line. A person should divide his money three ways, his assets three ways. Shlish b'karka, a third in real estate, nadlan, nechasim below 90, a third in merchandise. Merchandise is always good because you have merchandise, you can sell it and make money. V'shlish tachas yado, and a third ready to use so that he can't miss a deal. If a deal comes up all of a sudden, and if it's in real estate, the money is in real estate, may not be able to turn into cash right away. Same thing with merchandise, may not be able to find a buyer. But if you have cash ready, a third of your money is a third of your assets are in cash, then that's a good idea to keep so that you'll be able to take advantage of deals. It's like ena bracha mitzuya. Another thing Ritzvah said, bracha, the blessing is only found el b'davar saman. It's something which is hidden from the eye. In other words, it's not good to out there, exactly what it is. How did she say? If you know how many shoes you have, you don't have too many, right? Right? Imelda Marcos, right? If you know how many shoes you have, you don't have too many. It's the same thing with money and assets and cash. If you know exactly what are you worth? If you ask somebody today, what exactly are you worth today? If you know exactly what you're worth, can't be very much, right? Because things are complicated. So he says it's better that you don't know exactly what you have. Shnemar, Hashem will command the blessing in your storehouses. The word asamecha, your storehouses, is also similar. The drasha is samui, something which is hidden from the eye. When it's hidden from the eye, there's blessing there. If everybody knows exactly what you have, not such a good blessing. Same idea that the bracha is only there. Bracha only exists. The blessing is only on your merchandise and your assets that the eye cannot see. Hashem will command his bracha on your assets when they literally in your storehouses. But asamecha is a drasha of samui, something which is hidden. If you're going out, you're a farmer, you got the crop came in, and you're going out to measure how much is in the granary. You don't know how much is there. You say this blessing, may it be your will, God, that you should send a blessing in the work of our hands. Make a blessing there, a blessing that it should be, maybe there's more there. I don't know how much is there. I hope you give me a blessing, it'll be more. If you start to measure it, as you start, you should say, yeah, but blessed be the one who sends a bracha in this pile that I'm about to complete measuring now. Modad, but once you measured it already, once you've measured it and you know how much is there, you can't miraculously pray to God and it should be more. That's a prayer in vain because it's after the fact. You find the same idea that if a man wants to have a boy, his wife to give birth to a boy instead of a girl, well, he should pray that before she gets pregnant, or up until 40 days. It takes 40 days to Yisir Savlad. Until that time, you could change it, right? We had the famous story with Rachel and Leah that there was supposed to be another boy, right? Leah was the boy miraculously turned into Dina the girl, so she wouldn't, so that what was the reason? I think so that Rachel should have at least as many as the Shvachot, right? Because otherwise, if she would have had 7, Yaakov was destined to have 12 sons. If Leah would have had 7 and the Shvachos each had 2, Rachel would have only had 1. She would have been less than the Shvachos, right? I think that's what it's brought down to Medrash. So there, miraculously, a boy turned into a girl. But normally, after 40 days, if you pray your wife is about to give birth, and you pray that it should be a boy, it's a little bit late for that. It's a little bit late. That's what we call tefillah shav, of praying in vain. Why do you make it about the bracha is only there? There's no bracha in something which is already weighed. Not in something which is measured. Money, not something which is counted. Something which you can't see. You don't know how much is there. Then you could hope for a bracha. Hashem will command the blessing to go onto your storehouses, darshaned as in your hidden things. Pardon. Thankful. That's right. Yeah, thankful too. Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel said this rule in those days. Today you'd say keep it in the bank, maybe put it in a secure safe. But he said if you're a shomer, if you're guarding money, somebody gave you money, the only place that's safe is in the ground. If you didn't bury it under the ground and somebody came and stole it, especially those days things weren't as locked as well, etc. If you didn't bury it in the ground, you were negligent. You're responsible for that. That's what Rashi says here, that it's considered negligent. Amarava. So we'll see, there's some qualifications here. Amarava, Moder Shmuel be'erev Shabbos. Let's say you were given some money on Erev Shabbos, Ben Hashmashos. At Ben Hashmashos, right as Shabbos about to begin, the rabbis did not require you to start digging. Some take out the gears of Ben Hashmashos, because at Ben Hashmashos you can't do any work, right? Even if it's right before Shabbos starts, you don't have to start digging up and putting it there. The guy just gave you the money right before Shabbos. I got to go to shul. Here's my wallet. Can you hold it for me? You're not expected to dig a hole in the ground and put it in there then. Okay. That the Shah, the Matzoi Shabbos, but if after Shabbos, and it wasn't stolen yet, it wasn't stolen over Shabbos, the Jewish thieves, or at least they keep Shabbos. They didn't steal it on Shabbos. If you left it after Shabbos, Shiur, enough time to make brenu. You could have buried it after Shabbos. After Shabbos over, you could have buried it then, and you didn't bury it, and it was stolen. Then you are chayav because you had enough time now after Shabbos to bury it. But let's say the mafkid, the person who gave you the wallet, was a rabbi. So then the nifka, the shomer, could say, wait a minute. He gave me his wallet. He might need that wallet now to buy some wine. He might need some wine for Avdullah. So I wanted to keep the money handy because he might need it right now. I wasn't going to go bury it. Then it's okay. Then that's okay too. Once you know he's made Avdullah, you should have buried it. And now in our times, when people use, what are those things called? Magnetometers. You see them on the beach looking for money, looking for things, right? They looking for metal things, right? You see, they had them then, right? Magnets are not a modern invention. Now that there are people who feel that they look where the money is. So even under the ground, it's not so safe because people come around and they see where the coins are. So the only place to put them is in the rafters, and under the beams of the ceiling. But now, there's even people who know how to break into the ceilings, into the roofs. You got to put them between the bricks. So that's the only place to put them. In the ground, not so good. In the roof, not so good either. Break in there, put it between the bricks. You put it in a wall, that's also okay. Our name between the corners, but then that's also not so good. But later on, as afterwards, the people like tappers who are able to they tap on the wall to see where good builders know how to do that too. They know how to where the hollows are. They can feel where the wall is hollow. So as soon as it's hollow, they break in there. The only place is in the tefach, which is right near the karka. Presumably there you can't have a hole in the wall, so you have to have something solid. Or the tefach near the rafters. That's a safe place to keep them. Obviously, all this depends on the situation and the times. These are situational conditions. Amalei Ravacha Breit Rav Yosef Ravashi Hasam Tanan. We learned in Psachim, which we learned a while back, a couple of years ago. Tanan, we learned Chamash Nefelim of Polis. Now this is dealing with this right now. Let's say you had a building collapse on some chametz. You had some chametz there, bakery, whatever, and the building collapsed, and there's no access to the chametz. It's as if it's burnt up. It's like you were mavarit, and you don't have to do it. The Gemara over there says, there's a possibility that the ruins, the building collapse will be uncovered during the Chag, so you should also be mavatal it, like we do. You make bittul also. Okay, but if on Harekim before, Shmuel says, well, it's not just simply that there was a building collapse on the food. The question is, can a dog reach it? Can a dog search it out? Okay, the Tanakama Chabis is like, how much is that? What's the depth of the ruin of the collapse, the debris that a kelev would be able to access? Gimel tfachim. If it's 3 tfachim, meaning if it's 3 tfachim deep of debris on the chametz, you're okay because a kelev won't reach it. So that's what's considered buried. Hachamai. What about over here? What would you say consider? We said that the best way the only shmira for money, if somebody gave you money and you put it in your desk drawer, that's not a shmira. You have to bury it under the ground or bury it in the walls, as we've said. So how deep does it have to be here? Hachamai. What about over here? Mibi and shoshet tfachim. You also need 3 tfachim deep under debris, under something, under earth, or inside a wall, or inside bricks for it to be protected. Although Amalei, so he answered. Ravashi answered him. Hasam mishum reicha. That's because the dog can sniff it. There's a smell. If it's within 3 tfachim, the dog can smell it and he'll dig it out. So beginning of tfachim. Hacham mishum mechsui. Here it just has to be covered so that the thief won't discover it. Mishum meschim. It's got to be covered. Covered from the eye. It's got to be unexposed. How much do you need? Rav Shapiro said tefach. Tefach is good enough. Now we're going to have a bunch of stories where we've learned various klolim that a shomer should not give something to another shomer, and we've learned that shia you're chayiv on. And we're going to have some difficult cases How do you paskin them? So here's the case. Okay, so Reuben gave Shimon, we'll call Shimon the Shomer, the alliteration of Shimon and Shomer works well. So Reuben gave Shimon some money. He put it, where did he hide it? Out in the field in a hut made out of reeds, a reed hut. They had these round huts out in the field that the hunters used. They were trappers that used it for catching birds and stuff like that. So he put it there. Is that a safe place? Well, for Ganavim, it is safe. Which Ganaf is going to go out in the middle of the field looking for cash? That's not where you find cash in people's homes and their drawers, right? Or like Willie said, at the bank. That's where they keep the money, right? You're not looking for it out in the field, right? So as far as Geneva goes, that was pretty good. But as far as a fire goes, out in the field with all the crops out there, a fire could spread very easily. So he put the money there in this little hut out there in the field, and it was stolen at the end. Now, stealing over here was really an accident; couldn't have been anticipated. That wasn't Shia. Omer of Yosef, even as far as stealing goes, this was a good place to hide it. No Ganef is going to think that you hid the money rather out in the field. So as far as the Ganef goes, it was a good, it was very secure. But in Yanur Pshusa, but it was considered negligence as far as a fire goes, because you put it in a place which is extremely flammable. So what happened over here? But at the end, it wasn't burnt; it was stolen. So this is what we call at the beginning, he was negligent in the sense that he put in a place which fire could easily reach it. But at the end, it was an accident because Yenev out in the field is an accident, couldn't have been anticipated, and therefore he's chayev. And that's how we pass it. Economy, some say so even though as far as the fire goes, it was negligence, then you can have it through. As far as stealing, it was considered a good guard, right? And it was a good shmira, it was a good secure. It's good. And this is Potter. That's the other way to learn. But the halatz and famous this discussion we've had in many places about Mציעא. The hilchos of the halachas chilas b'shia v'saf is chayev. That's how we paskin that chilas b'shia, even though at the end it was an ones, but you were poshay at the beginning. If you're poshay at the beginning, you are chayev. Ahu gave another story. The afgid zuzi gabi chavrei. Again, Reuben gave Shimon the shomer some money to watch. Amalei, Shimon said, we had this case back on Lamed Hey. Amalei, he said to Shimon, give me my money. I don't know where I put it. I forgot where I put it. Also came to Rav. He came before Rav to adjudicate the case. Amalei, saying I don't know, that's considered negligence. I don't know is not an answer. And therefore that's a Pshia Zil Shal and go pay him. So these cases are relatively simple. Either Tlas Pshia V'Sofa Ba'ones and we paskin as Chayiv, or Lo Yadana is Pshusa. That's pretty obvious. Okay. Ahu Gavra, right? Ahu Gavra, interesting, Rashi points out, it just makes it clear that and at the end it was stolen for a nikdavu v'geneva l'shomer chinam onesu. See, if he's a shomer sacher, he's chayv on geneva aveda no matter how you look at it. But this guy was a shomer chinam, the guy who put it out in his tent out there in the field, right? He was a shomer chinam. So shomer chinam is not chayv on geneva. It means not chayv? He's only chayv on negligence, but he was negligent at the beginning. So if you say tchilas b'shiva v'sapanis is chayv, he's chayv. You say tchilas b'shiva v'sapanis is potter, he's potter. But at the end, it was an ones. Why was it an ones? Is Geneva an ones? Yeah, for a shomer chinam, Geneva is an ones because he's not responsible for that. That's what Rashi just points out. We know that shomer chinam is potter and Geneva neveda, but Rashi clarifies the svara. Geneva l'shomer chinam is an ones. Is it considered ones? The last story on this page, 3 lines from the bottom of the page. How again, Reuben gave money to Shimon to watch for him, to guard for him, and he was a shomer chinam. And Shimon gave it to his mother to watch. He gave it to his mother. His mother's a trusted member of the family. So she put it in some chest over there in her house. The ignorant of it was stolen from there. Now, what do we say? We said, what's the way to keep money? The only way to properly secure money is to hide it in the wall between the bricks, deep under the ground, or a place at least a tefach deep where it's not going to be found, a place which is not exposed. But it was stolen from the chest. That was not in the wall or under the ground or in the bricks. Amar Rava, so Rava says on the last line of the page, how should judges judge this case? There's several parties involved. We have the mafkid Reuben, we have Shimon, and we have Shimon's mother. Namely, should we tell Shimon Zilshon you pay? Amr, he'll say, when you give something to somebody, to a shomer, it's understood that he may give it to his mother or to his wife or his children. We said before, if he gives it to underage children, that's considered negligence. If you gave it to kids to play with and you didn't lock them in the house, that's negligence. But otherwise, you can give it to your family members. Here he gave it to his mother. Why is he responsible? He did a proper thing. He gave it to his mother. Namely, to tell his mother to pay, Zil Shlemi pay. She'll say, I didn't know it's not his. He gave me some money to watch. I didn't know whose it was. I thought it was my son's. If it would, he didn't say it's not his, Ninu, Dak Bruna, that I should have buried it. Interesting you say over here. What do you mean? What's the difference if it's your son's or if it's somebody else's? The answer is if it's your own, you're not mechuyev to watch it as carefully. If you have somebody else's, that's how a person should have an attitude. If somebody else's money, I'll take care of more carefully than I'll take care of my own. Somebody gives me money to watch, I'm going to lock it in my safe. If my children give me money or my own money, I'm not so careful with it. That's the rule. The rule is she didn't know it was somebody else's money. She said, I thought it was his money. I thought he wouldn't mind if I put it in the chest. What's the problem? So what are you going to do? You can't go after the Shomer, Shimon, because he says, I gave it to my mother. That was the right thing to do. You gave it to me. That means that you expected me or my mother or anybody in my family who were adults to watch it. The mother said, I didn't know it was somebody else's. Nay Malay. So maybe we should tell my law. Why didn't you tell her that it's somebody else's money when you gave it to your mother? I figured if I tell her the didina, if I tell her it's mine, it's famous Arabu. I gave it to her with understanding. I gave Mom, can you watch this money? I figured if she thought it's mine, she'll be even more careful with. The Shimon has to swear that he gave it to his mother. And his mother swears she did some minimal security by putting him in the chest, thinking that it was stolen. And Potter, they're both Potter because they're really both Shomer Chinams. And there was no Pshia over here. That's the point. Shimon was not Posheya. It wasn't negligent because he gave it to his mother. His mother wasn't negligent because she thought it was family money. And family money, you can keep in a chest. You don't have to bury it. Now here, even a more complicated case. So look at Trip of the Asmi. There were some young children, right, who had a guardian taking care of their financial assets. What did he do with their money? Zavan Latura, he bought him an ox. He went to the market and bought them an ox, right? For Yisomim. Figured, okay, that's a good investment. You know, the animal will produce whatever. And he gave it to a cowherd, to a man, you know, to like a shepherd, but for cows. I guess they call that a cowherd. Muscle bakr. He gave it to the cowherd to take care of. But this cow did this, or the ox did not have any molars or front teeth. He had no teeth. To eat, he died. Couldn't eat, and he died. He starved to death. Rav Meir sat and he said, "Hey, how should judges judge this case? Now, how many parties are involved over here? We have the apotropos, right? We have the seller of the animal, the seller of the cow. We have the apotropos. We have the asomim, and we have the cowherd, right? There's 4 people involved over here. Complicated case. Who's responsible? Name of it. Until you tell the apotropos, Zil Shon, you pay. Omar, he says, what do you mean? I gave it to a cowherd, and he was paid. When you give it to a cowherd, they don't work for free, right? It's not like a field where you say he's a sharecropper and he takes part of it. Give it to an animal, he's paid. I gave it to him. He's a shomer sacher. He should have. I gave it to a shomer sacher. Shomer sacher is responsible. Check the animal, make sure he's eating. You know, do whatever you have to do. That's why you're a cowherd. You understand animals. You know, he's not selling cars over here. Namely, lebakra. Should you tell the cowherd zilshom you should pay? Amar ana bahadi Torah ukmitin. What do you mean? He gave me his cow. I gave him this, or the ox, whatever. I put them with the other ones. I put it with my other animals here. I threw them some food. I made food available for them in the trough or wherever they eat from. I didn't know that he didn't eat, right? So what am I supposed to do? I did what I could. I gave him food. I put him with the other animals. I had 100 other animals. I didn't know that he wasn't eating. Not my fault. The Gemara says, Michti, Bakr Shomer Sacher, the fact he's a Shomer Sacher, the Yasmi, he's really Shomer Sacher of the Asomim, right? Who the apotropos is acting on their behalf, right? So they're not adults, so the apotropos is acting on their behalf. The apotropos hired this cowherd, the Bakra, and he should have checked. Who, right? He's Mechdi, Bikra, Shamasacha, the Asmiu. You should have checked and made sure the animal was eating. That's how you take care of it. You don't just say, I threw him some food and I went to Vegas. Should have watched it and seen. Very good. We're going to get to that. Because I said there's four parties. The one who sold him the ox, the Apitrupas, the Yisomim, and the Bakra, the cowherd. So the Gemara first says, well, the cowherd number one is a Shomer Sachar. Is a Shomer Sachar, you should have checked it. Right? You could say the original owner sold him a defective ox, but the Shomer Sachar should have seen that. So the Gemara says, if there would have been a loss, you're right. The Shomer Sachar would have been responsible. There's no loss here at all. You know why? The Yasam didn't lose out. They found the owner of the ox, the original owner who sold it to them. They found the owner of the ox who sold it to the Apitrupas. They got their money. So the Apitrupas went on behalf of the Yisomim back to the owner, and he said, "Look, you sold me a defective ox, right? So give me my money back." And they got their money back. So the Yisomim and the Apitrupas, so to speak, they've been made whole, and by getting money back from the seller of the ox. So Laman Katan. So who's the plaintiff over here? Who's pleading the case? What's the issue? If the Yisomim got their money back for the ox, what's the problem? It says Mari de Torah Katan. The owner of the ox is making a complaint. Why? He has a complaint against the Shomer Sachar, against the herdsman, against the herdsman. He's against the cowherd. He has a complaint against him. You should have let me know. You should have let me know that the animal was defective. So this is my Modina. What do you mean? Why does he want the cowherd to let him know? Made the other so he knew that it was a mistake and that it was a bad deal, that it was a mistaken deal. The guy sold it to him. What does he have a complaint against the Shomer Sachar? What's his complaint? The answer is B'Safsir. We're talking about a trader. The seller of the cow he wasn't a farmer or whatever, or he raised cows or whatever. He was simply a middleman, a tradesman. He bought and sold the same day. He didn't examine the animals. He bought one and sold it to another. He didn't know. It wasn't what we call mekachtos. He buys from one and sells to another. So what do you do in a case like this? The Yisomim have got their money back, but the seller has a complaint against the Shomer Sachar. Well, you might say there are several people removed, right? The seller sold it to the Apitrupas on behalf of the Yisomim. They gave it to the Shomer Sachar, and now the seller of the animal, of the cow, the Safsira, has a complaint to the Shomer Sachar. Is that a valid complaint? No. So number one, the trader, we'll call him the trader, the one who sold the cow, he has to swear that he didn't know. It wasn't a mekachos. He didn't know that the animal had no teeth. Umishalim bakra demei basar zol, and Echnami, the Shomer Sachar, has to pay at a cheaper rate. He pays like 2/3 of the meat. Meaning, what was the real loss over here? Had they known, if you have an animal that can't eat, right? He's lost all his teeth. What do? You chefed it. You get the meat out of it at least. Now the animal died. There's nothing. You got nevela. You got a very diminished, hardly worth anything. So he's got to pay for that. He's got to pay what the meat would have been worth at a cheaper value. Says Rashi. Now keep your finger over there on who Gavra before the last case. There's a long Rashi here, and it's good to see it inside. Rashi says, look, take a look at Rashi. Mishtaba, a little bit above, about 7-8 lines down. When the lines get narrow, 7-8 lines down. It's me, I need. Says Rashi, I'm amazed. Where do you get this din zeh? What does the trader have to do with the shepherd? Here he calls him Bakra, the shepherd. What does he have to do with Shur? Lo shomer shalo, he didn't hire him. He's not his shomer. Veneer Ali says this goes back to the Mishnah we had, the Mastisan, that Socher par lechavero. One person rented a cow to somebody else, Vishilo Acher, and to somebody else. Reuben rented I think we said over there, was a Shimon rented a cow to Reuben, and Reuben lent it to Levi. And then an accident happened, the animal died. Now, the animal died, and it was Mesa Kedarka. It wasn't an accident. It died natural death. The shoal has to pay for that. Mesa Kedarka shoal doesn't have to pay. The Kamar of Yossi, Yachzer Para Labalim, right? The shoal, well, Yishilachu Mesa Kedarka. I don't know, was it Mesa Kedarka? Let's just see, it was Mesa Kedarka or Mesa Kedarka. Mesa Kedarka means that's an accident. Mesa Machmas Malacha. is where the shoal is potter. Basically, darker the shoal is chayiv. So here the shoal is chayiv, but who's he chayiv to? Remember, the Tanna Kama says the shoel pays the socher, right? Pays the renter, and that's it. So the renter makes money on him. Over there, Rav Yossi says, "What are you talking about? The Kamar Rav Yossi Yachzer Par Laban. Why? The socher is making money on the maskir's animal? No, you can't do that. Rather, the shoel has to pay the original owner, even though they're not related. You understand? You have number one rented his cow to number two. Number two lent it to number three, and number three was a shoel, and it died there. He died there. Mesa Kedarka. So the shoel is to pay. Who says Rabbi Yossi? You don't pay number two, you pay number one, the original owner. That's the same thing over here. Even though the owner had nothing to do with the shoel, number one had nothing, he had no relationship with number three. The same thing over here. He's not losing anything. Also, there's no connection between them. It's not like number three owes to number two and number two owes to number one. Number two is not really number three does owe to number two, but number two doesn't owe anything to number one because it was an ones. Since he has a din on the show, since number two can go after number three, right? Because he lent it to him and it died in the hands of the shoel. Number one takes the place of number two. Sure, number one has no relationship with number three because he didn't lend it to him. He rented it to number two, and number two lent it to number three. So number one has nothing to do with number three, but two does. And one takes the place of two. So I'll show Ligwas Yamdo Abalam or Shonim B'Kom B'Gov Min Ashol Hachanami, and that's in our case too. Since the Yisomim could collect from the shepherd or the coward, Shu Shomer Sachu Shalem, that's he paid them. The Yisomim could collect, the Apitrips can collect them half Yisomim. Yamdu Balam B'Makom Yisomim. Therefore, the owner takes the place of the Yisomim. He sold it to them. B'Gov and he could collect. If the Yisomim really would have lost out, you would have made up shara. The Shalom Bezol to pay that the coward could have gotten off by paying a reduced price. The Asmi Lav B'nei Mechila. Yisomim cannot be mochel. Yisomim, young children cannot be mochel. Aval Achshav Shu Magva Lebala. But now that he's collecting what from that they collected from the Baalim, the Khan Aim Shia, there's no Shia Kolkach. The fact is the Shia was not so great. I said, I did feed them. I gave the animal. I gave it with my other animals. So he told Pshara, he made up Pshara, made up Pshara, a compromise. He doesn't pay the value of the Shomer to the trader, to the one who originally sold it to the Apitrippus on behalf of the Yisomim, Moshu Chai. Well, the animal's dead now, so the hide will give back to the owner. Remember, the Yisomim were made whole already. The Baalim paid the Yisomim off for all the money that they paid, they got back. So now the owner can take back the hide. Basar, as far as the Basar, Shaman, the Yishalim Shnei Shlish, you should pay 2/3. The Heicha Amina Begar B'Sham Zol, it always means 2/3. So that's why the Pshara is a little bit hard to understand over here. The Yisomim were made whole, they got their money back from the Baalim. But the Baalim is a complaint to the Shomer Sacher. What's his connection with the Shomer Sacher? Remember, in this case, we'd have the Baalim gave it to the sold it to the Apitrippus, number two. Baalim's number one, sold Apitrippus, number two, on behalf of the Yisomim, number three. And then number two gave hired number four to watch it. So what does number one have to do with number four? The answer is number one takes the place of number two and number three of the Yisomim, and therefore he has a claim against the Shomer Sacher, and the Shomer Sacher has to pay him at a reduced price. But he says again that if the Yisomim had not gotten their money back from the original owner, then you wouldn't have made up Shara. The Shomer Sacher would have had to pay in full. Yisomim cannot make or not b'nei mechil, they can't be moko. Just a quick story that Rabbi Breidowitz said, someone can't be moko. There was a story with, I think it was the Stipler of Chaim Kanievsky. I forgot it was the Stipler, his father, Chaim Kanievsky. I forgot which one. It might have been the Stipler. That one day there was a bar mitzvah in Bnei Brak, and it was either Reb Chaim or his father, and he walked to the bar mitzvah 2 miles or 2 kilometers in each direction to wish him when he went over to the bar mitzvah and went back home. And he didn't really, nobody knew what their connection was because, he doesn't walk that far to a bar mitzvah and there was no family relationship. What did he do? What happened was that years ago, 4 years before that, this boy was bar mitzvah now, had davened in Reb Chaim's Beis Medrash, in the Beis Medrash in Bnei Brak on Rosh Hashanah. And he had this big, he accompanied his grandfather. and he had a big siddur. He was holding a big siddur for his grandfather with big letters, and Reb Chaim thought that it was Gemara. So he said, on Rosh Hashanah, you don't learn in the middle of davening. It's improper. He thought it was a Gemara. So he accused the boy of learning on Rosh Hashanah morning or Yom Kippur. So he accused him, but then he made a mistake. It wasn't the Gemara. He was holding a big siddur for his grandfather. So he wanted to ask Mechila. But we just said Yisom were not b'nei Mechila. Yisom can't, a child cannot be Mochel. You got to be at least 13. So Chaim waited 4 years to the bar mitzvah. And on his bar mitzvah, he walked there, he asked him Mechila. That's what he came for. He came to bar mitzvah to wish him, to ask him for Mechila. Now he's bar mitzvah, he could be Mochel. That was the story you see over here. Yisom lav b'nei Mechila. One last story. A person deposited some hops that they make beer with. He gave it to the shomer. He himself, the shomer, also had a pile of hops in his barn there, or his silo, whatever. And the shomer told his brewer, his worker who makes the beer, "Hi Rami, go take the hops from the shomer's own pile of hops." Also rum, beat. Workers, they don't listen to you exactly. You tell them to do something. If you don't watch them, they do something else. So the brewer went and he took it from the pile that he was supposed to be watching of the shomer. Amr Amram, so Ram says another thing. How will judges judge this case? What are you going to do? Should we tell him, the shomer, Zilsham, you should pay for the loss of the hops? Amr Ana, Amri Le Mehai Rami. I told him to take from my pile. I didn't tell him to take from that pile. So it's not my fault. It's my worker, right? He's my guard, right? She tell the brewer, Zilsham, you should pay. Amr, he says, listen, my boss told me, he didn't say take it from this pile, don't take it from that pile. I thought they were all his piles, whichever way, what's the difference which one I took? They're all the same. If, let's say, when he told him to go get the hops, the mafkid's hops, the one who was deposited, the depositor's hops were far away. And it took this guy a long time to go get the hops. He should have known that it belonged. Why didn't he get it right away? It must have been that the shomer must have known that he went and he took it from the wrong pile. Then Goli died to Nechale. Then the shomer showed that he was happy taking the other guy's hops and he should be responsible. There's a bit of low shaw. It didn't take that long. Both piles were within reach, and it didn't take that long. So there's no way. The shomer did not know that his worker took it from the wrong pile. So, and he told him to take from our right pile. So the shomer says, I'm not responsible. And the brewer, the worker, says, he didn't tell me not to take from this pile. So what do you do? So the Gemara says, sof, my mistake. But what loss is there at the end? What's the difference which hops he took it from? He took it from the other pile's hops, so just make up the difference, right? Either way, the other guy's hops improved your beer, right? You were able to make your beer. So you used his hops, so give him some of your hops. What's the problem over here? So it's my mistake. What's the loss of here? He gained, he benefited from the other guy's hops. So, okay, so I used your hops are all the same, aren't they? So I used your hops, so I'll give you back my hops. What's the difference? No. The beer turned bad, turned into vinegar. So he didn't really gain from him. In other words, the guy had bad hops, so he really had a loss. He didn't have a gain. So what do? The hops that he gave, the way Rashi learns is that the hops that he used, and it's the hops of the depositor, were very bad hops, and they were coats and over, and there were thorns mixed up. And the brew did not turn good. The beer was not improved kirtzono because he was upset that he used those. He says, I didn't gain anything from yours. The answer is, but he's got to still pay him for bad hops. It improved it a little bit. He didn't make good beer out of it, but whatever it did, he's got to pay him for that. So maybe if the shomer had good hops and these were bad hops, so gave him the same value of the hops that he actually used. So basically, the shomer had to make good on it. So some of these cases are more complicated than others, but you see the idea that a shomer has to be responsible. All right, we'll pick up the Mishnah tomorrow, Mr. Have a good day. It's important to know